Really great to meet you both, and congratulations on a really wonderful film. Maybe for people who haven't seen Anon, don't know anything about it, how would you summarise what it's about?
It's about a society where there's no privacy and no anonymity, which is strangely like today. But it centers around a detective that Clive plays, who thinks he's sort of seen everything, and then he stumbles on this young woman who has no digital footprint, and he can't identify her. And that's where it starts.
And Andrew, thinking of your previous films, such as Gattaca, do you see some threads between those films? And what do you think the themes are that this film's trying to grapple with?
You know, I always look for the ambiguities in life. You know, in Gattaca, there was, you know, you can cure someone on the one hand, or you can enhance them on the other hand. And in this film, it's the same thing. It's a wonderful technology as well, you know, on the one hand, because you can identify everything, you can see all this data, but unfortunately, people can see your own data as well, so that's the flip side.
And I understand you, Clive, are actually quite an analogue person, as you sort of, Amanda's character kind of says something similar in the film. How did you try and enter into this world, and what were your feelings about this whole issue of privacy and social media and how it's overtaking our lives?
Well, I think it's like, you know, a lot of great films that are set in the near future, really, it's a way of just separating yourself a little bit to have a look at what's going on now, and it's easier to digest and look at it and pause for thought. We're basically saying we're not that far away. I mean, in this movie, we've taken away the devices, the computers, the phones, we're now hardwired into it all, but really, it's not that far-fetched. We are in that world, you know. It is the end of privacy. Everything we do is recorded. Every bit of information, every time we buy things, we go online, we're giving up, you know, information, and we don't really even discuss it or think about it that much.
And obviously, it's something that's been preoccupying films for some time, but I understand, you know, like the timeliness of this probably couldn't have even been predicted, because you start making films a long time before they're released. So how has that been for you? Like with all the Cambridge Analytica scandal, everyone's sort of waking up to this loss of privacy with Facebook, for example.
Yeah, I mean, it is that, I mean, but, you know, that's sort of been going on for a long time. I've always had this worry that this thing called the cloud, that we keep everything, every bit of information that we think is a safe place, but it's not mine. It's not just for me. It's out there somewhere. It's accessible. If you've got the smarts about you, you can get to it.
And coming to the aesthetic of the film, I mean, I think one of the things that really strikes me is this, you know, how extensive the level of detail, the plausibility of the world you create. You know, even thinking of the text that makes up the bios. I understand if you pause the film, you could even read those, all that detail is there. So how did you go about creating this aesthetic? And were there some challenges for you, Clive, acting in a world where most of the time you're staring into space, you're not even looking at a screen, never mind another person?
Well, I mean, we can do that now. You know, I mean, right now with your phone, you can read text of a foreign language, and it'll bring up, you know, an English translation, and you can identify someone's face. You can, so you know, all of that sort of exists now. I just sort of took a jump ahead and put it in your head. But yes, it was a nightmare for me to have to, every time I look at somebody or a subjective shot of somebody, I have to write their bio. So yeah, there's a ton of text in the film, intentionally, because that's what we have in our lives. You know, where everyone's looking down at a phone and getting more information.
The trickiest thing in terms of acting it is just really the shifting of focus all the time, because the idea is if we're hardwired into it, I'm looking at you, talking to you, and if I want to access something, I can just focus here and see all the information. And it was really about getting specific then about where you're looking at any given time. But to be honest with you, is, you know, I can do that as an actor. It's Andrew putting all that together and knowing when to shoot and how to shoot and perspectives and angles. I thought it was going to be a very complex thing, putting all that together, but when I saw it, I was blown away by how clear the world is set and the clarity of the storytelling.
And in some respects, it's kind of like a futuristic film. But then in other respects, it's kind of seems like a very classic detective noir. So how did you kind of strike the balance between those and in developing your character and your relationship with Amanda?
It had that noir vibe in the script, you know, you felt it was, you know, we were in this very, you know, almost futuristic world and we had sort of taken this jump ahead, but there was a very classic element to it. It read like a noir story.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks so much for your time.